We're on. We're on. So we talked briefly about the one, how important the one is. If it's not balanced, then it becomes pushy, it becomes closed-minded, because the one is self, either negative, positive, or bit of both. But the one, the main idea of the one that we all need is we have to be strong enough to cut through the entanglement of the mainstream culture that demands conformity. And how do we do that? By finding a direction as soon as we can in life. And as we express that direction, we come into a sense of independence and true individuality. Very important. So if you've got too many twos or a two in the destiny, you get thrown working with other people and you don't fit. You just don't fit. So the one can then be closed-minded, candid in expression. The one, if you've got one, particularly in the soul position, it has a tough time getting the words out. The one is not fluid in its verbal expression. The two is very fluid in its verbal expression. So when Ollie gets together with Sean, generally Sean listens and Ollie goes on. Not necessarily though. But the one quality in the expression position of a name, or not, Einstein is a 1-4-5. That one limits the fluidity of verbal expression. And it governs the senses of the head. The two now governs the fluids. The one is, should we say, male, it's figuratively speaking, strong, physical, male force. The two is a soft, feminine influence that is here to follow. The one is not a follower. The two is a follower. The lesson of the two is to understand the heart and mind of your fellow man to the point where you blend. The two is a beautiful quality on the positive side. On the negative side, it's lazy, procrastinating, never gets around to getting things done. It lacks the confidence. The one has the confidence. The one is action. The two is passive. But the passive element, we all must have the passive element. We all must be able to listen to another person's speech and draw them out. I love the person that draws me out. To experience the pleasure of another person's company, which relates to all of us, is the most prized quality of all. In other words, I find myself always saying, I have 7s and 1s in my original name. And but I'm in the social grouping. Well, this is a thing here we've got to deal with here. So the day of birth tells you what grouping you are in of one of the 3 basic types. So the 1, 5, and the 7, if the 1, 5, and the 7 end up in the day of birth, that means you're not fundamentally social at the deepest element within yourself. If the 2, 4, or the 8 lands in the middle of the day of birth, then you are social. That is a lesson that you've got to achieve. Einstein is a 6 in the major life lesson. That's the major life lesson, but the group lesson is just as important and strong.
I'm just like Einstein.
Well, not altogether, because you're in the emotional grouping and he's in the independent grouping. So he wasn't at all the kind of guy you want to bring home and introduce to your mother. But Chittakash is the 6 in the major life lesson. So here he is. He fathers us all. So it comes out. And the downside of the 6 is sometimes a bit bossy. But Chittakash is a 281. Is it 281?
Yes.
Yes.
No, up at the top.
Yeah.
654. We're close. 281 under Chittakash. That's right.
That's right. But the original name is 854.
Yeah.
So, but he's an emotional type. He's got to be the speaker. His finest moment is when he's in front of people giving instruction, and if he has an audience when he's giving a little demonstration or something, he is at his best.
Are you projecting here?
This is science, okay?
That's right.
Science.
Numbers, we say, never lie.
So this is the 6 in the birthday.
That's right. He's a 6 in the major life lesson.
I have a 6.
And you're the same. You're the mother, and he's the father figure.
Hey, wow.
But now we look at the day of birth, and Chittakash has a 3 there.
A day of birth 6.
6, 3, 6, and 9. So he needs to, his function is to inspire people. So he has to have a name that allows him to draw from that emotional force like an Andre Pacelli and make a connection with the audience and speak, teach, sing. So he's here to inspire us. And that is vital. So when he's had those moments in the limelight, under the spotlight, I should say, and he connects with people, a group, on the group level, or one, but mostly on a group level, and he feels that that his audience is responding, that's when he can quietly bow his head and say, "For this was I born." That's his major influence, being in the emotional grouping, and he's a 6. And the same with Vicky.
It's interesting because I grew up with the impression that nobody was going to listen to anything I said in my family. Like,
Yeah,
but that was under Bruce, I guess. Not.
yeah. Now, Vicky's birthday is what? Or Vicky?
I'm a
Nikki.
Nikki, sorry.
And
I have a 2, my birthday is 258. 258.
Well, what's the day of birth?
23rd.
23rd, that's 5. Opposite to Chittakash. You are born to be your own person entirely. You're not here to deal with people's problems. Not your thing. Now you have 9s in your makeup, so it throws you into the association of people. But if you have to listen to people moan and groan and on and on and on, you think, my God, can't take this. Because you're not here to be a sympathetic person supporting people in their misery. You are here to create something of your own. Whereas Chittakash has that 3. He is born to respond to people in need. So Chittakash is going to pick up sympathetically the vibrations of all our characters here individually. He's concerned about them. He wants to make them feel good. He wants to say something to make them feel good. Whereas Nikki wants to get out of the crowd. She's born, she's not fundamentally social. That's not her lesson. Now her names may compel her to do that, but still her power is in being able to pioneer a new avenue of activity, a new thought. Art, maybe
It's
painting,
in my art,
painting,
yeah.
painting. Your environment is exclusively your own. You need to have an environment that is protective, that allows nobody else to interfere with your creativity.
Yeah.
And Chittakash is writing a book or something like that, and he's all by himself. He can do it for a while, but it's not until people come into his life that he comes alive. Look at us all. And he loves it. But he's also the father figure. So he really wants to make us all part of the family.
It's interesting because
Can I say
that's
something?
one of the challenges I have with doing my writing,
Mhm.
because the people are here. But it's also fascinating because I was doing my writing for an hour, and Erica came in to say, so how was the writing? Because she could hear me on the phone. But I'm doing research, and I'm talking to the people, so I can talk to the people that knew Shara, so I can get information for the books that I'm writing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, there you are.
I wanted to add one thing. His life lesson in Hands, because I read his Hands,
Oh, yeah.
is the reluctant patriarch. So he is meant to be the patriarch, which in my language is the glue that holds the group, the tribe together.
Yes,
So you're also talking about that being his major life lesson.
yes.
So it's being reflected in both,
yeah.
which is fascinating to me, which is part of why I'm taking
Well,
this course.
the lines will form according to the
Yes,
mind.
so that's in
Mhm.
his fingerprints. His fingerprints were formed in utero before the brain was formed, so that's his destiny. That's why is he here this lifetime.
Yeah,
And that's his major life lesson, is to actually come in and take the place, be in the limelight, take the place of the patriarch. And that, you know, some people can be in the limelight, but they're not necessarily a patriarch.
exactly.
The patriarch
Yeah.
is the one who cares about each one individually and, you know, has that,
Yeah.
that ability to weave and hold the group together
Yes.
on an emotional level,
Yes.
on the love vibe. So what you're saying and what I saw in your hands is
Yeah.
absolutely corroborative.
Yeah. Yeah. Now Nikki's a little different. She's
You're
got
making
the
it very hard for me
she's
to hide out here.
she's got the maternal instinct, but she still has to be selective. She's got the mothering quality. Wouldn't you recognize that, Nikki?
Yeah, I actually, I feel called to be with certain people.
Yes.
So people come into my life and I feel called to
To
wrap
mother
them in
them.
love and
Yeah,
just,
yeah. That's right.
just to have a lot of empathy and
That's right. They're quite different from Chittakash. They're
Mhm.
both sixes, so the other numbers plus the name influences make them a little different, but the major life lesson is the same. So shall we carry on? So the pleasure of each other's company is most vital to the two. So the two, and Chittakash also, with Chittakash, is a 281. So the two accentuates that quality of being able to link with people. I'm in the social grouping. I can't do without people. But I've got lots of sevens in my makeup also. So I have to be very selective. I can only take so much. No, 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 no. And but this is what humanity has to learn. I'm going to cite an example, but maybe it's not appropriate because Chittakash comes here into it. But it's fair to say that most people that gather, it doesn't take long before there's a din of chatter. And then, so we're all talking away and talking away. The next morning we wake up and all that has taken place in our conversations the day previously is gone because nothing of consequence occurred. But because we're human beings, that is the goal of all of us, to become one with each other, to experience the mutual interest in pursuing the meaning of life. And only under those conditions will the Spirit come into the group. As Jesus supposedly said, when two or more are gathered in my name, so am I, the Spirit. So am I.
That's so important on a Saturday.
Hmm?
That's where the gardening is so important on a
Yes.
Saturday, that people are actually gathering
Yes,
together.
we are.
Yeah.
And then we have lunch, and then we have conversations, and some of these conversations within the group are very important.
That's where the Spirit comes in.
If you've heard about David Bohm, the physicist and philosopher, that had a great dialogue years and years ago with Krishnamurti, the guru, but very unconventional guru of India. And he started these dialogue groups all through the world, because with his colleagues, he couldn't figure out why most of the conversations ended in argument. And so once that occurs, there's no communion, breaks down. Or collectively around the world, people play it safe, and it's just so much small talk. Nobody has often the guts to break through the chatter, simply asking people, drawing people out. And that's the responsibility that we all have. If we can begin to draw people out, have the courage to share our problems, not for the sake of using people to dump on, but to share our problems, to see what other people might think about it, and therefore we get a dialogue. But that can break down also, because somebody who thinks they know it all will come along and say, well, what I think you should do, Sean, is you should do this. Or worse yet, that breaks down the conversation faster than anything else, if somebody pops up and says, I don't agree with that. Where the heck can you go with that? So if you don't agree with that, then find out why you don't agree. Find out, go into that other person's mind and dig deeply and deeply. And then, because they've spent a whole lifetime thinking about something, and you come along and say, I don't agree with that. Which people often do to me. It's water off a duck's back at this stage in my life. But that's what we're here for. We're here to make good conversation. And when that happens, I have to admit that I'm a slow learner, but it wasn't until I was about 15 to 20 years ago that I made my first soul connection with another human being. When that happens, even though the conversation may be short, somebody comes and has to go home to Holland or something like that, but if that connection has been made, that connection is being made is for a lifetime. You carry that for a lifetime. That's how beautiful it is. But when nothing but little things are said, superficial things, there's no link. I was going to say much earlier, where do we go after death and so on? No, I think we'll leave that for the moment. So the two is so important. Now it's the three now is an emotional force, along with the 6 and the 9. See the 3 number types? 3, 6, and 9. This is the emotional force. We are all designed to receive the impressions from all high, from the highest spirit. It's the emotion that allows us to register, first of all, the most beautiful and beautiful thoughts, the most beautiful music, the most beautiful conversation. Those that don't have any 3s and 9s, which is rare, most of us have a mix. But those are strong in the 4s and 1s, should we say. Maybe the 5 or the 8, not the 8. They don't feel like those of us with 3, 6s, and 9s. Interestingly, they don't feel it. I remember coming into my house with my first wife. We found this beautiful house on Capitol Hill in North Burnaby. Phenomenal view. And this was the first one I recognized that her character is missing something. I was so amazed at that view. It was the best view in all of the Vancouver Lower Mainland. Looked over up Indian Arm, over the mountains, towards Port Moody, saw Mount Baker, and we came into the house to look at it in the daytime. This is the house that I want. But then I realized my wife didn't feel these things at all. Not a criticism of her, it's just a lack of number quality, the 3, the 6, and the 9. She has some feeling, of course, but we all have varying degrees of that. That first night when we moved in there, I slept in the living room because I want to keep looking at this phenomenal nature scene. It was just phenomenal. Now I've got lots of the 7 quality, and that goes deep into the feelings. It's not an emotional force, but I've also got emotional qualities in my makeup dominant. So I have all of these different qualities, but boy, so I'm having some of these qualities, particularly the 7. My major life lesson is 3, and this is speech. But my name had 7s. To reconcile these opposites has been an enormous struggle. Enormous struggle. I went into the link of the Oracle, and a woman, beautiful woman, her name is, what is it again, first name? Jacqueline Hobbs. Jacqueline is a 527. So I know everything about the 7-ish quality within people. I can see their struggles. Even Jacqueline, but really I was really impressed by her things. Really impressed. I was going to tell you that. If you want to listen to someone that's got a good mind, Jacqueline Hobbs, the Oracle. But anyway, I listened to not just the one thing, but the other thing. I was fascinated, not just by what she had to say, but her delivery. Fascinating. You and I will talk about that another time. So the 3 is an emotional force. Without it, people without too much, they don't know what they're missing. We may think that everybody's generally the same. Not so. Not so.
This is fascinating. I've got a twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't a clue what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been hung up on the astrology, like he was 7 minutes different from me, but
Yeah.
now I understand that it's the numbers that throw him into, he doesn't know what he's missing.
No.
He hasn't a clue what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Same with my brother and I. He's a 764. He's an 8. I'm just his younger brother that doesn't know anything. And it took me at least 40 years to create a workable relationship with my brother. And now when we chat, we can have a decent conversation. But I have to draw him out. I'm in the social grouping. I have to draw him out. And once, a few years back, I thought, I'm going to take a chance. I said, Harold, do you realize that I draw you out all the time, but you have never ever in our lifetime, in our relationship together, have ever asked me a single question or drawn me out on anything? He took affront to that, and he never talked to me for years. Or he didn't talk to me for many months anyway. But now we are bosom buddies. But even then, I have to draw him out. But a little bit more I've learned to find a common ground where we can talk about. We talk about our cousin in Toronto mostly because she's next of kin and so on and so forth. It's just so much gossip, and I don't like to do it. But in order to make a connection with my brother, I'll go there for a short period of time. So this is, speech finds its initial formation in the 3. So the 3, 6, and 9 are the most sexual qualities.
Which quality?
3, 6, and 9.
Sexual.
They're so emotional, and when the 3 falls in love, boy, they fall in love. But the 3's verbal expression relates mostly to self. This is why all of these numbers have to have the support of other numbers, or otherwise they can go wonky, including the 3. My graduate, one of the challenges I was growing up, the 3 speaks. The 3 likes to talk like the 2, but the 3 is empowered because it has an emotion. So I would take over at the dinner table in my family when Harold and I were little boys. And I still remember him saying to me, Clane, wasn't Clane at that time, but Clane, why don't you shut your mouth? Ooh, that stung me. The 3 has the power to debate. And debate is primary. The 3 can be provocative. I used to get together with a bunch of men, about a dozen of us. And Jim, kind of the leader of the group, he got this kind of system that was a personality system. What are some of them anyway? This was a pretty good one. So he wanted to figure out where we all were in this group. And every one of them, they find their natural qualities on the top of the circle. And guess where I was? At the very bottom of the circle. So when I spoke, not directly at them to criticize or to argue with them. I've learned a long time ago not to argue with people. But suddenly, I would be talking to the group, and I'd make some comment. And invariably, it was very, very provocative. So the word that described my character more than anything else was provocateur. When I first heard that, me a provocateur? Not so. I'm not here to provoke anybody. But gradually as that sunk in, I realized, and I didn't do it intentionally, I am a provocateur. No matter what group I find myself, I manage to provoke a response. I've gotten better at provoking a response because I've learned a little more about the true nature of the 3 and the true nature of the 6, and ultimately the nature of the 9 is love. I get together with a group of Baha'is every Monday, not now because of COVID, and I have to listen to babble. So one day I'm sitting there, and I know I have to be very careful, but I thought it's time for me to speak up. So they're babbling away, and I want to get down to talking about their holy books. Some great stuff in there. And so I think, okay, now's the time. I threw up my hands. I said, okay, stop. I said, stop the babble, for heaven's sake. Dead silence. Well, they don't babble anymore. Or if the babble starts, they catch themselves. Oh, Clane's here. We better stop it. So I've asked them several times, you people can throw me out any old time. And I've been thrown out a lot of groups, even the David Bohm dialogue group. I don't do it intentionally, but sometimes I provoke anyway. And so, but in order to create stimulation when we're with anybody, we have to have a certain capacity for controversy. because that stimulates thought. This is why the three is the best at debate. But the three finds the fine line between debate and argument, something that they have to really work on. Really work on. At this stage of the game, if I feel for a moment that there's an argument starting to develop, I change the subject real quick. But still, we need to provoke. Being provocative can be both negative and positive. And controversy can be both negative and positive. But that's the function of the three. Get the group going. I must say something here. One of the weekends we came here on Saturday, and don't feel too bad about it, but there was a lot of gabbing. And I thought, I thought to myself, because I can take small talk for just so long. And so anyhow, I was sitting there thinking, I'm tired here, I don't know what to do. But I didn't feel quite up to telling them, stop the babble. But fortunately, I try to think positive thoughts when this kind of thing happened. Positive thinking is really, that's one of the great things that came out into mainstream life in the West here, positive thinking. It's a great thing there. But positive thinking cannot be assumed. It has to be learned. So anyway, I was thinking here the other Saturday, what can I do here? I think, no, just to feel a little tired, I'm not going to do it. And suddenly, our father friend, Chirakash, and I don't know if the rest of you knew or recognized that he changed the conversation. He changed the conversation. Maybe most of us didn't realize that he changed the conversation, and it got a little deeper. Do you remember that? You may not. But anyway, it's his job to do it, to bring us together onto a little higher level. Because the potential in a group conversation is profound. Absolutely profound. So everybody has the responsibility. The reason it doesn't go very deep is because the primary urge within the culture, at which level it is on collectively now, is self-expressing. Putting our 2 bits worth in it. And we feel good when we can put our 2 bits worth in. And we're sometimes very oblivious that, who's got the 7 in the birth path? Adam has. If he's sitting in the group, he picks up right away, and I've got 7s, I pick up right away that it's not going deep enough for me to find any pleasure out of it. And I'm in the social grouping I want to, but I have to be selective because I've had 7s in my name. So it's only when it goes deep that something magical begins to happen. Chirakash knows that, I know that, some of the rest of you might know that too. We were able to succeed at that. But it can very easily drop a bit to the point where we're competing. I know this and I know that, and we're drawing from our memory of things we've got to say that we've said 1,000 times before. So what does it take to make good conversation? Tremendous listener, and we have to have the depth, and we have to have the intellect, all of these qualities. And if we can create that, we will, so I told you 20 years ago or so, when I made this first real deep connection with another human being. What comes when that happens and rises up unbeckoned? Love. Love. We fall in love with each other. Every time normally we hear the word, I love you, dear, hollow.
Especially with the deer.
Hey, hey. Hey, hey. I've got deer that live on my property. And I commune with them. I go out on the balcony and I hear these deer and I say something to hear, and then all eyes. There's two mothers with their two baby ones. They all turn around, see who I am, and carry on munching. I have no fear of wild animals. Grizzly bears, I've been in the middle of grizzly with their two cubs. I've had communion with a wolf. I've had communion with a butterfly. I've communion with owls. Love to share these stories sometime. So that's the kind of depth. The 7 finally goes deep, but we'll come to that in a minute. The 4, quickly. 4 is the number of logic, truth, science. It's the awakening of the intellect as it is directed towards science and practicality, car mechanics and building things and constructing things and figuring out new ways of solving a problem, whether it's philosophical or otherwise. Patience. 3 has little patience, the 4 has infinite patience. Who won the race between the rabbit and the hare and the tortoise?
The one with the most patience.
The tortoise. The rabbit decides, well, he has enough time to take a nap. And in the meantime, while he's napping, the tortoise plods along. And the rabbit wakes up a little too late, rushes over to cross the finish line, but the tortoise makes it. Years ago when I was young, I knew that if I couldn't finish the things that I start, I wasn't going to amount to anything. And this is the quality that gradually I learned. So still, I've got a half a dozen musical instruments in my house and never brought any of them to perfection. The latest one was I moved to Salt Spring Island. I had bought a ukulele in Hawaii, quite a good one, and I took some ukulele lessons, but now the darn thing is gathering dust. But when I found the knowledge of the numbers, boy, I found my path. And so I love music. Allow me to sing a song for you, and I'm in 7th heaven. So this is an artistic emotional force that subjects the individual that if it isn't balanced properly to highs and lows. But the 3 doesn't stay down. The 3 is happy-go-lucky, artistic, expressive, and the life of the party.
So when you don't have a 3, you mentioned something earlier. I don't have any 3s, or I have no 7s.
It doesn't mean that you're going to suffer from the lack of them. But if you've got the 3s, the 6s, or the 9s, all similar, all have that emotional force. Love, they go really deeply. With the 3, it's mostly sexual, and it often stays sexual. Although the number that has the strongest sex nature of all is the 9. The 6, the 3 is just a wild kind of free. My motto in life is wild and free. That's my motto. The 6 is sexual, but it is responsible. So when the 6 has sexual activity, orgasm should we say, man or woman, not all the 3 of the 6 and the 9, if the imbalance is there, they can become obsessed with sex. But with a 6, its job is to awaken that sexual element to, to transmute it. Otherwise, in the 9, they become addicted to sex. But in the 3, in putting it simply, the 3 awakens the pleasure, and it wants to repeat the thing all the time. The 6 has it, but there's another thought that comes into the mind when the 6 is awakened through that tremendous spiritual force. Behind the 3, the 6, and the 9 is the spiritual force. And so in the 6, and I've got 6s, so the first, I'll just tell you my own experience. When I have sex with a woman, I want to have a child. 3 doesn't want to have a child. It takes away their sense of freedom. The 6 is so maternal or paternal that it thinks about the child. It wants the child. It wants to teach the child. It wants to bring the child. It wants to awaken the paternal response to the children. Look after them and teach them. So every time I've had sex with a woman, that's the thing I want. Let's have a child. It's so strong. The maternal element there is within the 6. And in the 9, the highest expression of the love force is through the spoken word, the teacher. But when they haven't the balance, boy, they can go crazy with sex and deplete the vital force, because sex does deplete the vital force. But going and becoming a monk or a nun or something like that is not the wise thing to do, because you've got to grow out of it as a preoccupation, as an indulgence. It's not that sex is bad, it's just that it can become addictive and rob the individual of their vital force. So that's anyway the 3, 6, and 9.
Quick question.
Yes,
So
yeah.
when you're talking about these numbers and the way that you're talking about them, this is only relative to the major life lesson?
No,
Or
all the numbers.
all the numbers. So
But
we're looking
particularly
at-
the life lesson and the soul quality there. If the 3, the 6, or the 9 is there, the love is very strong. If it's just in the minor life lesson, Albert has a 3, it's there fairly strong. These are the formative years.
That 674, is that relating just to the first name?
Yes, just the
So
first
the
name.
first name is really...
Very important. The first name is gives the strongest urge of all numbers or names, even birth path. But that name, if the 3s and the 6s and 9s are in the major life lesson, and you've got a 191 first name or a 674, something like that, that 674 is frustrated. The 3, 6, and 9 are suppressed, frustrated, and will then come out in the negative state. The 4 in the negative state, the 3 in the negative state is too much talk, argument. The 4 in the negative state, they can't see the forest for the trees. If there's not the 6 and a bit of 9 perhaps, or something like that, then the 4 gets stuck in what's in front of them, and they never see and feel and register the powers of the 7, the 8, and the 9.
What if in your first and last name you only have 3 6s and 9s?
It all depends on the balance. When I give names to people, for a woman, often 3, 3, 6, 3 and 6, but those are balanced. The 6 stabilizes the 3. The 6 is emotional, but it's very stable. It's like hydrogen and helium. The sun burns primarily because of ignition of hydrogen and helium. But if there was no helium, there would be an explosion. But because of the helium, it stabilizes it, and so the suns in the universe burn for millions of years, billions of years. Our sun is halfway through its life cycle. Our sun is about 4-point-something billion years old. So it's the same with these. Balance. And in order to understand this, I hope you can understand, I can't deal with these questions so fully because it's too much. But the study of balance of these numbers is what's at the root of this teaching. And so then the 5, an intellectual quality. So if the 5 shows up in the soul position of a name, then you know that the 5 is the most dynamic, intense driving force. So people with the 5s in the soul position perhaps, or in the major life lessons, or even in the minor life lesson, they can't go to sleep. They're driven. They're very quick, clever, impulsive, very impulsive. We throw the emotional qualities in there, and they really suffer from loss of temper. So, but this is a quality, and this is a quality that is best described in one single word: truth. So those of you who have 5s in your makeup, major life lesson or in the soul position, very strong then. If I'm talking a lot of nonsense, the 5 picks it up, intuits it. So wherever they go, they intuit the lie. They don't tolerate superficiality, small talk. Neither does the 7, the 5 and the 7 and the 6. Don't tolerate small talk for too long. The 5 is here to change the world. It's a number of change, but it's always motivated by truth. It has more guts to challenge the lack of truth. You know, in the COVID thing, you get a lot of these people that are against it. And quite often, they have the courage to say so. And Jesus, the Christ, symbolic of the 5, although not he's probably, even if he existed, 9 in the birth. Gandhi was a 9 in the birth path. And Nelson Mandela is another great soul. And we'll maybe talk about, well, let's talk about Nelson Mandela. His original name was not Nelson. It was an 865. Well, this is a good illustration. When he was sent to prison for 27 years, he knew he was stuck. So, because of the nature of the man, from birth, and from his original first name, which was an 865 in English.
His first name, in African.
That's in African, the African lump. But in English, it translates to it was 865. But I don't know. Well, I did know his birth date. But anyway, let me use him as an illustration of the 5. Gets thrown into jail. The guards are abusive. This is hard labor on the rock pile, literally, I think. You came from South Africa, didn't you?
They had to smash up boulders
Yeah.
on a rock island.
Hey.
Like a quarry.
Yes, yeah.
With hammers.
That's right. So, he became a world-recognized high soul. How did that happen? My guess is that had he not have been got into prison, he wouldn't have learned this lesson. Anybody that learns these tough lessons has got to spend time in experiencing the dark night of the soul, so to speak, which happened to Mother Teresa, as many other people. But he knew that if he was going to live in here for 27 years, he's going to make friends with the guards. Gradually and slowly, and he also stood up to them. Probably had to experience a lot of abuse. But gradually over the years, he knew that if he could reach these guards, he might be able to learn to live in jail for 27 years. As he was growing mentally, learning to tolerate, not to criticize his guards, but learning all that it takes to get along with his guards. Gradually over the years, he also started to try to teach. As he was succeeding at this and making a connection with the guards, he was also trying to teach his inmates. Have you read the autobiography?
Yes. In fact, at the end, the guards actually loved him.
That's right. Exactly. I was going to get to that, but you finished it off. So, but it's okay. Good. I'm glad you said that. So gradually, anyway, he tried to teach his fellow prisoners. They weren't having it. They hated the guards because of their abuse and so on. His friends in prison were not ready. Mandela was ready to walk the spiritual path. He was called to it. But he needed to be faced with some very, very life-threatening experiences. So finally, when he got out, you're right, just to repeat, Sean, everybody. But at the same time, he was still getting his message out to the South Africans, because he went to jail not because he got caught bombing the installations and everything else, but because he was implicated in it. He finally supported the faction that was going to get attention through bombing. And he wasn't going to do that, but because he was complicit in that, he went to jail for 27 years. And after he got out, he traveled the world. But he had, as Gandhi had, experienced a growing power within himself. The most beautiful lesson to learn is this one. A lesson of power for the benefit of others. But also because he had become not just powerful in a sense of being a leader, but he also became powerful. Like Gandhi, he knew that his speech, which is the vehicle for all of us, the most important part of the human animal speech, that he was beginning to have an influence upon his fellow prisoners and upon the guards particularly. I think he got so friendly with some of the guards, they snuck out some of his writings. I don't remember. I think that's what he did. Can't remember. I read his autobiography. It's a beautiful thing to read. But anyway, he became a powerful figure by virtue of his wisdom. So any individual that begins to intuit original thought, new concepts, and begins to share them, because as we evolve, the urge to share our wisdom, however small it might be.
Was this, are we talking about 5 or the 8?
The 5. As we learn to open that door and begin to receive a bit of wisdom, that wisdom gives us power. The power, there's no greater power than the power to influence another human being. So when Nelson Mandela got out of jail, he was recognized as a true teacher. And he traveled the world, got big crowds of people, because we recognized him as a great soul. And so the thing here is truth. Nelson Mandela, 865 in English, I don't know what his birth date numbers are, but he was searching for a truth. He stood up to a truth. Gandhi did too. So when we have this 5 and it's not out of balance, if it's out of balance, it cuts a swath of destruction in its path. It's one of the most destructive qualities of all when it is out of balance.
So you said his name before it was Nelson Mandela was...
No, Nelson was a later. Yeah, his original name, what was it again, Sean?
It's an African name.
But what converted to English, what did people
There
call
is
it?
no translation.
Well, he did have another name.
And that was the 865 name?
It was an 865.
Nelson Mandela. What is his name, Nelson Mandela?
Nelson is a 257. Not a good name. And Mandela, I think Mandela is a 775.
And together?
Two and 7 and 7 and 5 is 3. 3 destiny. But we shouldn't do that at this stage because he's primarily moved by his original names in
it's actually Koza.
Quasi.
Koza.
Kwaza. Okay. So that's what we have to work out. Now with this knowledge you can find the numerical equivalent in any language. Even the kanji and the Chinese and Japanese language. You simply count the strokes in the radical part of the kanji so that's the radical part and the other part is the phonetic part. So you just do that, so it's the equivalent of our vowels and consonants. But anyway, let's carry on, shall we? The 6th quality is that quality that is reaching the point of moving beyond worry. But the negative aspect of the 6 is worry.
Worry?
Worry, W-O-R-R-Y. And they can worry to themselves to distraction. Very, very dangerous. Because all of us, the 6 is worried about something that they're doing not working out. And we all do that. 6 particularly. But the 6 is the awakening of our responsibility to humanity. And that is the turning point between the mental and the spiritual. The 6 is very close to the 7. The 7 is the number that goes inward, but let's finish the 6 first. So the 6 awakens to responsibility for others, and that is the thing that moves us past the problematic state. So if we're fighting with someone, our spouse or neighbor or anything like that, we can get what we want from our spouse and our neighbor if we become our brother's, sister's keeper. The 6 becomes the keeper. Our brother's, our neighbor's keeper, our children's keeper, everybody. The 6 is the quality that must be reached because it's the 6 on the highest side that begins to develop the faith and the confidence in the inner nature, the God within. And as we start to serve more, the ultimate serving is in the 9, in the expression of wisdom, the teacher. The teacher. And so the 6 now has the challenge of using its mind. It's the most intellectual quality of all. Remember 4, 5, and the 6. You have to develop an intellect to discern the difference between truth and fiction, which is a very difficult thing to do. And so the 6 is here to help, to serve, to teach, to be the father. The 6 takes you by the hand and shows you how it works. And the 6 is the bossiest quality of all. If the child or the friend doesn't get it, the 6 is thinking, can't you get it? Can I use you as an example?
I was back in that space on Tuesday. I was there in that space on Tuesday.
Oh, were you?
I mean, pretty good.
Yeah.
But then just suddenly, people just weren't getting it. It was obvious what needed to be done. They weren't getting it. And it was great for me because I took another step and got on it.
Hey, good for you. When I was pulling weeds out of that, out of the garden. I have to share this with everybody.
Well, if you had just done it right, it wouldn't have
Well, I was taking the shovel and shoveling underneath all the weeds in one great big bunch, and then picking the weeds out of the bunch. And I kept asking Chittakash, is this a weed or is it a flower? And I think he lost it just a wee tiny bit.
It was the second time that I was saying, yeah, you know, just everything is growing in your path. We don't want anything growing in your path.
That's right. And I thought, you scoundrel, I'm going to get even with you. So this is my moment.
Now, what was it in your number that had you doing that? It was provocateur.
Hmm?
Yeah. I get that. What was that again?
And I was thinking, you sick scoundrel. I didn't take it personally, really, I didn't. But, but it's a good illustration because we've all got and expressed the negative side to our numbers. And we're picking on the 6 right now. I could pick on all the other ones.
Yeah.
But the 6 is pretty good. And Chittakash has the 8 soul in his original first name. So he has an objectivity. He can listen and he can draw you out and so on and so forth. But keep in mind, just because he's got a bit of a challenge, or might have, or anyone might have a challenge, we're here to help them and not to judge them.
Yeah.
Jesus was the ultimate. Thou shalt not judge. Now every day we've got to make judgments in our daily activities with people and everything else. So it's not that we shouldn't judge. But judging, when judgment awakens a negative response in the emotions, that's a no-no. So we've all got to reach the point where we know the difference. And judging is a horrendous difficulty with the majority of people. And so as soon as we've judged, we create a division between the person that we're judging. We create a division. They can no longer feel our love and our understanding. So we must master judgment. No matter how hard we try to justify our judgment, we have just disconnected and made it difficult, impossible, because the ultimate quality of the 9 is love. And Jesus, we may not be adherents to Christianity, but whoever wrote that or spoke those thoughts was a person that had gone very, very high. According to David R. Hawkins, he calibrated at the highest 1,000. Christianity as a religion calibrates quite high.
Bruce Dispenza was saying that when they test the brains of people, when people are in the state of forgiveness, that's the highest frequency.
Hey.
Is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And the next highest is gratitude.
Hey. Because these allow us to be happy all the time. Love even thine enemy. That is crucial. I know one of the dominant qualities in my life was the 7, and still is the 7. And I had that difficulty. When I started to overcome it gradually over a period of years, bit by bit by bit by bit, I wonder why it took me so long. I didn't know what I was missing. And now I love everybody. Except that somebody wants me to pull weeds all day long. We've all got our challenges. But as we come further and further into the state of loving everyone, but in order to do that, isn't something that we can assume to love everybody. It doesn't work. we've got to reach a level of understanding over people, so much so that suddenly the will comes to overcome the negative. When we've understood someone, overcome self-pity or criticism of an individual, when it begins to arise up again, and if we've made enough progress in our conceptualizing about the negative elements, seen enough of a positive perception as to what the damage does, suddenly the will rise up, and we will never hurt another soul. We will never hurt our spouse. We will never shout at our children. Now, sometimes there's a fine line between establishing your authority, not your control over, but your authority over a young person. You can raise your voice. But if there's any emotion in that, so I can say to my son, Hugh, when he was a young boy, Hugh, right away. But if I say, Hugh, I'm going to lose that child sooner or later. And so all of these things have to be mastered. Coming into enlightenment isn't done through an exercise of some kind. It's a gradual, slow process, probably a product of more than one life. If I think about all that I've achieved up to this point in my life, I think it's not very much. David R. Hawkins, in his Calibrating Levels of Consciousness, has stated that 85% of humanity is not progressing at all. Some cultures more than other cultures. But he says that the average person that is growing is able to move forward by about 5 notches. So if they're calibrating at 300 in a lifetime, if they're really working, they'll get to 305. If it's true, then it's not a single lifetime. And but some people come in are more ready to develop that. But at any time, before we die, we'd better make a link with that consciousness, that spark. That's another story altogether. But anyway, so finally, if we've awakened to our responsibility for others, looking and feeling responsible for others is a quick way to make growth. It gets us out of self very quickly. I'm living alone and I don't like it. And I can feel my mind wandering or feeling dissatisfied. Having a deep marriage is a beautiful thing. To have a woman or a man in your life, opposites that is one of the most nurturing, mentally and creating more mental and emotional stability than just about any other experience. The attraction between male and female, if it's compatible and if we learn our lessons, provides a mental and emotional stability that is profound. That's the strongest attraction to draw the opposite to our lives. But it seldom works because we have to evolve to that.
So, Payne, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation recently about I have lots of 6s
Yes,
all
yeah.
over the place. And my whole life I feel like overly responsible.
Yes, yes.
And so I end up, I'm beginning to learn that I can end up being responsible where I'm poking my nose in and taking responsibility for other people where it's not needed,
Yes, yes.
right? And so what is, when you're saying, it's a good thing to be responsible for others,
Mhm.
in what way is it good to be responsible for others? Can you talk more about
Because
a healthy
Because it's a healthy, because it allows us to express. It's through an intimacy, a spiritual intimacy, that we share the most, and we gain the most benefit from it. So the 6 needs to show its intellectual prowess. But the negative side of the 6 is they can become interfering. Because this is the know-it-all quality. Do you know why it is the know-it-all quality? Speaking is because they know it all. It's that simple. But know-it-all can be negative and come on as a know-it-all in the negative sense. You just don't want to be around them because they're know-it-all. But the true power of the 6 is to be able to be the nurturer. And all that it takes to be a good nurturer. Now, you don't have to be married to someone of the opposite sex. You just have to have enough connections with the opposite sex, and anybody as well, to be able to feel the tremendous power and the beauty and the health that comes when we are linked to each other.
Just this, like the opposite sex stuff. So does this not support kind of same-sex couples so strongly?
No. It's a violation of the most fundamental principle of life, duality.
So that's interesting.
But don't go around thinking nasty thoughts about homosexuals. That's no good. We are here, you have to be very careful in trying to get a person out of their homosexuality. But homosexuality is an interference. But I don't want to take up time now because this is a very controversial subject. But you can see, but you can see that the opposites coming together do something that same-sex can't do. Now, most of us go into relationships, opposite or bisexual or homosexual, for what? For the sexual thrill of it. And but when it comes right down to it, we want to move past the obsessiveness of sex. To engage in it at any age, no big deal. But if it becomes a habit, an addictive force, then it takes away rather than complements. So, but male and female or female and female together violates the fundamental principle of opposites. With electricity or anything, everything is based on duality, positive and negative. And when you bring the positive pole together with a negative pole, wow, a spark and energy.
But we both have we all have masculine and feminine in us. So if you have, like when I've been in relationships, I've been more the masculine pole, and my partner's been more the feminine, even though they're men, right? So, I mean, then you could have 2 homosexuals, one who's more dominant feminine than the other.
Sure. Well, sure. We all have this new idea, the idea that everyone has a bit of male and a bit of female. Let's just hope us males have more male than female, and females have more female than male. But in reality, I don't like the word. We all have a bit of male and the female in it. You could say that, but in reality, we're different. And yes, we must develop the passive element of the 2 quality, which is female. And we must incorporate the power and the strength and the individualism of the 1. Every female has to do that, and every male has to incorporate a bit of the female. So female is okay. But should we stop at that for a moment, because this can be a real bugaboo.
I'd like to just add, it's in my head to say it. I think everyone in the room understands how powerful the media is in shaping opinion. I mean, you've been watching it, and the truth of it is coming out now. And I think the media has pushed the homosexuality and the rights and all of that to the nth degree,
Yeah,
right down to where
Totally agree.
you've got 34, 87, I don't know, different genders that they've all created. All of that busyness. I think the essence of what we're actually talking about here, and where the controversy comes in, is when we think we're talking about sexual preferences, when really what we're talking about is the right of people to be homosexual if that's what they choose.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be persecuted or anything.
Agreed.
But to say that homosexuality is natural or normal, or the order of things, or what can happen in any other kind of grouping, or that I agree with you is wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't think in any way there should be a judgment
I agree.
about homosexuals.
I agree.
It's just it's been totally confused.
Yes. Absolutely agree. We must love all people.
And when the media is pushing as hard as that, we must look past the argument to where the motivation is for that agenda to be out so strong.
Agreed. Yeah.
They're teaching now, and then we'll skip. It's going so strongly now that they're wanting to teach in some places. It's always like here and there. Kids in grade 5 or something, anal sex, like that's. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
there's all kinds of things that can be said about it, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily.
And
No.
4-year-olds about masturbation
Yes.
and equality of gender
Yes,
and all
yes.
this stuff.
These are signs of degeneration in the culture. Real bad signs.
And legalizing pedophilia.
Oh. So
Legalizing
Really
what?
pushing towards legalizing pedophilia.
Pedophilia.
Making
Oh
it a
yeah.
choice.
Oh yeah.
Of course, because
It's
they're
a
about to go
choice.
to jail for it. Let's
It's a
get
threat.
out of there.
Yeah.
Besides
Right.
the truth.
And
Back to
the
numbers.
English Lord
Back
said
to
the
numbers. Yeah.
Age of consent should be 4 years old.
Wow. Yeah. So we know that.
Yeah, what about number 7?
Okay.
Number 7.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The 7.
We've been doing that ourselves. Okay, go ahead.
The 7 represent the spiritual door. If we are going to become enlightened, we have to go deep. And the 7 is the only number that goes deep enough to awaken the spiritual force. In a good conversation, the people involved, if they're going to link spiritually with each other and feel the power of love and feel the connection that lasts an eternity, then we have to be able to go deep. We have to learn all that it takes to be a good listener. We have to draw people out. We have to share the depth of ourselves. The 7 on the negative side hides their thoughts because nobody understands them. The 7 is the most difficult quality in terms of being understood. Elle, are you a 7 in the major life lesson? That's right. And Adam? Both of you. So this is the quality that allows us to become one with all of nature, all of life, all people. But the 7 has a real tough time with people because they're so easily misunderstood. And they lose their power of fluidity of expression. They just, so somebody comes along and says, in a group, and we're talking away, and I see Elle over there, and I think she hasn't said anything. And I say, come on, Elle, what do you think? That 7 suffers stage fright more than any other number. It's, to me, death, the fear of death is nothing compared to stage fright. And so they hide their stuff. They're the ones that get involved in all these spiritual things and New Age things and the occult and all of these weird and wonderful things, flying saucers and all of these kinds of things, because it represents mystery. The 7 is the mystic, the one who comes to bring us new philosophical concepts, writes books. I've got loaded with 7s and I've written all kinds of books when somebody writes me an email, I take a lot of time thinking into the question that they have, thinking and thinking. And when I start to write, I tune in. And I realize that Jesus did not have a monopoly on what do they say, the spoken word or the wisdom. Anyway, so we've got to go deep. And the conversation has to go deep. And when it goes deep, in other words, we've connected with each other on a deep level, we begin to say things that we've never said to anyone before. A fount opens up. An elixir is taken, and the magic of it all happens. But in the sevenish people in this day and age, they're left out. They go quiet. They don't want the spotlight because they've have so much experience in being misunderstood. But it is the doorway to the spiritual domain. You can have 9s in your makeup, which is the highest expression, but it won't become the revelator until it has some degree of the 7. It is the qualities of the mystic. Ralph Waldo Emerson is considered the great mystic of American literature, and many of these gurus have 7s. You want something more. Small talk is just no good. The downside of the 7 is judgmentalism, because if I have to sit, if I'm not high enough with all my 7s in my makeup, and I have to listen to, the small stuff for a while, and I think to myself, I better knock on Chitakash's shoulder and get him to stop the babble, because if I'm not in the highest place of love, I have to be careful not to say anything. Because if any slight, and this has been a challenge all my life, and so when I'm with a group of people, or with one person, I had to take a bus from Banff Hot Springs to Toronto years and years ago when I was still a teenager. And the guy that sat beside me was a babbler, even though when I feigned sleep, continue on. Earplugs, that's right.
That's like me, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So they are the ones, when they're writing something, they tune in to the truth, and it comes flowing through them, and they are able to write. They're the gardeners. So this is why I commune with animals. I have no fear. I commune with my deers in my backyard, or they go from my front yard and into the backyard, and I let them know I'm there, and they look at me, and then they keep munching away. I have so many beautiful connections with animals. If we get to know each other, I'll share them from time to time. They're just marvelous. As the Christians would say, mind has dominion over everything beneath it. We are the nurturers. We are the caretakers of the earth. We're not doing a very good job of it. We can all do our individual best. And so the 7 is really a beautiful quality. They should paint pictures. They should write. Because extemporizing in terms of an audience and everything else scares the dickens out of them, as it has for me. But I'm not scared of you guys. I really love you all. But when I'm down and a little bit tired, sometimes I just got to go home and have a nap, something like that. But when I have a chance to express myself in front of a group of people, because I've overcome it enough to get past the stage fright, I'm in my element. I'm a major life lesson of 3. So when I've got people around me that I can love, oh, how lovely it is. Oh no, I better stop here.
Number 8.
Yeah.
Number 8. is in the spiritual category, 7, 8, and 9. So what's spiritual about the banker and the businessman and the tycoon and all of these people that built our society? That's the master builder. They have a greater and a natural appreciation of money than any other number. And we mustn't criticize the Bill Gates and the J.P. Morgans and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. We have to be very careful because they've built our culture. They've helped to bring it to this level for the benefit of all of us. Now, the downside of the 8 is best described by a high level of consciousness in the great writer Charles Dickens and his novel Scrooge. So when you're thinking about the 8 quality, just think of the Christmas Carol and Scrooge. Now, on the positive side, they are the fairest, most just quality of all. The 8 is symbolized in the law courts as the scales. It is the number of balance also, but it's the only quality that has sufficient objectivity to remain free from being drawn into the drama of life. The 8ish person sits there and listens. Chittakash has the 8 in the soul in the name of Bruce. So he's pretty darn good at that. Anybody that has 8s in their makeup, I had 8s in my original name also. I'm not too bad at that either. But it is beautiful to be able to make a judgment of things as to what's going on in the world, but don't get drawn into the drama of it, because that's destructive. The most powerful negative force is the 8. When the 8 loses their temper or starts to give you a rough time, watch out. The force behind that is so horrendous that it makes you shiver. It makes you crawl back into your hole. And I should mention also, Ashley, you know, did I work out your name? Your first name is 617. So when I talk about the 7, to a large extent, that's you, that nature girl, and really sense the beauty. You go to a beautiful movie, the 7 goes to a beautiful movie, and it's a beautiful movie like Out of Africa or something like that. And the movie ends. People with 7s are sitting there, mesmerized, transfixed. The music carries on. The janitor comes over to sweep up the popcorn and everything else. And there's just still a few people sitting there. Ashley would be one of them. And she's taking it all in. If her boyfriend or something just says, well, come on, Ashley, that was a great movie, wasn't it? Ashley the spell isn't so easy to break because you feel it so deeply. And, any comment? And stage fright and everything else. But the 7 is they can read a beautiful book and become so taken into it, so absorbed into it. But they're always looking for a lesson. They're always looking for something to learn. It's the beauty of the 7. Now, usually when I give the course, I talk about any single quality for half the evening, so that you get an impression, you know, it gives you the basis from which to see and understand people like they don't even understand themselves. So the 8 is the quality of the leader. The 6 is a leader quality also. But when the boss who's a 6 sees that one of the employees is not doing their job properly, they take them by the hand and they show them how it's done. So if somebody's picking weeds out of the garden or something like that, and they're making a mess of it, the six is going to take them by the hand and say, "Okay, Klein." You,
But only 6 times.
only 6 times. Yeah. Nikki too. So, but the 8 now, the 8 is a little different. The 8 hires you on the basis of your credentials when you filled out the application form. And they see that you're not doing the job. Now they'll give you every opportunity to do the job to prove yourself according to the information you've left on the thing. So the 8 will watch and watch and watch, maybe make some little comment, but finally the employee is not living up to what was in their application. So come over here, Sean. The 8 says, no, not Sean. Who's got 2s in their makeup?
Me.
Yeah. And so Erica, I said, come over here, Erica. Come into the office and sit down. And she said, and I will then bring out the application form. And it says you've done this and you've done that, and going to have to let you go. Just that quick. Because you didn't do what you said you could do. The 6 is going to show you and try to restructure your mind so that you do it, but not the 8. The 8 doesn't want to spend a lot of time dealing with your problems and stuff like that, although it is the number in the social grouping. So it is here to understand the heart and mind of your fellow man. Now the 8 does that the best on the positive side. The 8 can see right through you. In a great book favorite book of mine, I don't usually recommend books, but this one is called Light on the Path. And the 8th stage, it has little numbers dealing with the number qualities from 1 to 9, interestingly enough. And the 8th path, 8th lesson, is to reach a point where you finally understand humanity. You understand your fellow man better than any other number the 8 does. It has the objectivity. If you've got lots of 9s without the 8, you're never going to be the spiritual teacher. It's just too much of an emotional quality all by itself. Before the voice can be found, going into the 8, getting to understand humanity so well, only then can you find your voice through the 9. So all of these qualities are interdependent upon each other. And finally the 9, you find your voice. Why do you find your voice? On the negative side of the 9, you become so sympathetic that you take on the problems of your friends. But with the 8, you can have that objectivity. The 9 is the most emotional quality of all. It has the greatest swings up and down. The greatest emotional swings. And they're the artists. They're the specialists. The 9 incorporates all of the other numbers into itself, but they still have to be learned. So the final thing here is that in order to learn all of these other numbers, that name has to be balanced sufficiently to allow the mind to adapt and adjust to all circumstances. But the 9 is the power of love. Love as it relates to the spoken word. No book that I've ever read about love relates it to the spoken word. So when we've used the spoken word and we've made a connection to the spoken word and we've learned all that it takes to be tolerant, all that it takes to move past self-pity and everything else, then suddenly, naturally and easily, the voice will rise. And you will know what to say when you're in a group of people, or what you have to say when you're trying to counsel somebody else. Because the teacher, the nine who's the teacher, knows the essential function is to make a connection with the student or the patient or the audience. And when that connection is made and the teacher speaks, they become a vehicle for that great power. And then when they've truly found their voice, they know that with anybody that they're with or within a group of people, they have to wait for their moment. They're not just going to gab to put their 2 bits worth in. They know that they've got a responsibility of saying something of great import. For that you need some of the 7 and some of the 8 and some of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. But then when that happens, you find your voice. You know that you are becoming a powerful influence in life. And the 8 and the 9 governs the nervous system. During Scottish country dancing, we hold hands a lot in Scottish country dancing. And I was part of the demonstration team for years, and we'd go and travel and called upon by groups of people to demonstrate the dancing. And I'd soon find out who was the 9 in the group, because when you hold their hands, you can feel the hand vibrating with nervousness. So the 9 unfortunately contracts the most horrible diseases. Parkinson's diseases, what's the other crippling thing? MS, all of these things. Michael, our Canadian actor, Michael Fox. Fox is a 639. And unless the 9 is brought out all together in the highest and learns all the other lessons, it can start to shake. I'm under a 9 letter now in my name, which we haven't dealt with, and that only in classes. And that 9 is so strong that I find myself sometimes, my hand is starting to shake a little bit, but I'm not going to come down with Parkinson's, I don't think. But that's the 9. As
Cheryl
you
was
get,
a 9.
Cheryl was a 9. Yeah.
She died of 3 different things.
Okay. Yeah. So that's it. My books, if you want to buy them. The green book. Yeah. I'll be high for days now. literally high for days. So if you want,
Be pulling weeds on Saturday.
give him a smack, Nikki. Wrong type of smack.
If you're getting one book,
Which
is the
one
first
would
to
you
start
want?
with?
This book that Nisha has, Numbers the Master Key, it explains the 9 qualities with some depth. But you can also have the one with the binding, the coil binding in there. That might be the one that people want to buy, because it deals with all the 81 different combinations in brief. So you can read up the 617. Ashley can read up the 617, whatever her surname is, and you can get a readout. So that green class manual is probably something that you'd want. But this book is next, because these books are $20. The Miracle of Names and Numbers the Master Key is $20, and the green working manual is $30. So
with that green working manual, does it show you, like, you've got the 674 and the 145?
yeah,
I'm seeing the 6s from vowels and the 7 is from consonants,
Yeah.
right?
it'll
does it
show
go-
you
it
how
shows you
to work it all
and
out.
so does this one.
So does that one.
Okay.
All my books have that. So if you want to take the course, it's $300, but if I've touched you at all, you can pay me whatever you want. But the minimum is $30 at least for the manual, because that's what it costs. It cost me a fair amount.
And when are you giving this course?
Anytime we can get together, we can have
You
it.
say it's 12 1-hour sessions.
12 1.5-hour sessions once a week.
Probably 2 hours, right?
Sometimes it goes 2 hours because it's a very exciting knowledge, and people start asking questions, and sometimes it goes on for several hours. But the end of it is after 1.5 hours
What
to
would
2
you mean in
hours.
the evening, you bring sleeping bags?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Pajama time.
Yeah, no,
So I highly recommend it. If you want to take the course, you might tell Chickadash.
Should have
So, I always get that mixed up. Chickadash.
He's a bit slow.
Might tell him, or you might tell me. If we have a show of hands, we only need 2 or 3.
Yeah, and
Two.
my friend who couldn't stay for everything, she wanted to take
Oh,
it.
did she? Okay, then all we have to do, we've got enough. We can set a time.
Let's just
A
set one
day?
time this time instead of 3. It took us 3 times.
Yeah,
Let's set this
yeah,
one.
And
that's
I'm
it.
away the next 2 weeks
Are you?
after this week.
If you miss a class, it will all be videoed and put onto DVD so you can see it. If you miss a class, you can watch it on DVD. But you have to give the DVD back to me.
Can you put it just like online instead of on DVD? I don't have a DVD.
Yeah, who has a DVD player these days?
Uh,
have a
We
DVD player.
we even have a VCR.
Wow.
you can spend $30 and get a DVD player from an external drive DVD player.
Couldn't it be a file though that can be shared from USB stick to USB stick?
Yeah, I'm not set up for that. If somebody could set it up for me,
We could do that.
can you?
Easy peasy, yeah. Put it on a, yeah.
Then we could, then I could stream it. Is that the word? Stream it to your computer?
No, you just download it onto your memory stick, and then you come to our computer, and we put it in the memory stick
Oh, okay.
onto our computer,
Okay.
and then you go away with your memory stick.
Well,
again.
okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I've got a memory stick.
Yeah.
So, well, it takes up about, one class takes up about 2 or 3 or 4 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And so 12 times 3 is 36
Good with
gigabytes.
your numbers, aren't you, Frank?
Yeah. So yes, I could still put it on a what do you call
Having
a stick?
someone with a external hard drive would be much better, because they're a lot quicker.
Yes, yeah.
We've got like tons lying around.
yeah. Do you?
So,
So yes, we could do that.
yeah.
Whichever way you want.
Let's choose a time.
So
Yes. Now, what number was it that Nisha had?